had never expected his life to twist like this. One moment, he was a simple human working as a mechanic on a distant space station, and the next, he was sharing the observation deck with her, an alien girl whose presence seemed to bend the light around her. She was unlike anything he had ever seen. Her skin had a subtle shimmer, like the surface of a lake at sunrise, and her eyes reflected colors he couldn't name, shifting with every subtle movement of her face. Even her hair seemed alive, floating slightly as if underwater, catching the glow of the station's artificial sun. He tried to act casual, but his heart betrayed him, hammering wildly against his chest. Every word she spoke sounded like music in his ears, every glance like a silent promise he wasn't ready to understand. He laughed awkwardly, trying to hide his nervousness, and leaned back against the rail, letting the endless nebulae stretch out before him. "I'd say yes if you proposed," he said, speaking more to the stars than to her. It was a joke, something to break the tension, but the words felt heavier than he intended. She froze just for a moment, tilting her head in that strange, elegant way that made his stomach twist. Then her lips curved into a smile, soft, teasing, dangerous. "Then, say yes," she whispered. Her voice was lighter than air, yet it carried a weight that pressed firmly against his chest. Blinked, caught between disbelief and wonder, he laughed nervously, rubbing the back of his neck. "Wait, what?" he asked, his voice cracking slightly. Her gaze softened, eyes never leaving his. "I heard you," she said simply. "Say yes, don't hide behind your joke." A shiver ran through him. He wasn't sure if it was the station's chill or the effect she had on him. All at once, the nebulae outside seemed distant, unimportant, while the moment between them pulsed like a living thing. He realized that a simple joke had become something dangerous, something real. His mind spun with questions. Was she testing him? Did she always speak so boldly, or had something in him triggered this? He had spent his life following rules, fixing machines, keeping a low profile, and now here he was, on the edge of something he had no name for, staring at a creature who could have been a dream but felt far too alive to be unreal. Do you really mean that?" he asked finally, struggling to find words that could contain his sudden fear and excitement. She tilted her head again, a little laugh escaping her lips, soft but musical. "I mean what I say," she replied. "You can hide behind jokes all you want, but the truth is still here. It waits." Swallowed hard, the truth. That word lingered in the air like a physical thing, pressing on him, daring him to respond. His heart thudded painfully, and his hands, resting on the rail, felt too small for what he wanted to say. He wanted to speak, to shout, to run, to reach for her all at once, but the words tangled in his throat. Finally, he laughed, a short, nervous sound, and shook his head. I don't know how," he admitted. I mean humans don't, he trailed off, helpless against the weight of what was happening. She reached out slowly, placing her hand just above his. Her touch was warm, electric, grounding him even as his mind raced. "Then listen," she whispered. "The rest is simple. Say yes, let the rest follow." Stared at her hand, then into her eyes, and realized that the joke had already slipped past the point of laughing. Something had shifted. The stars outside the observation deck didn't matter. Time didn't matter. There was only her, only the quiet, intense pull of her presence, only the invitation he had joked about, and now, for the first time, he understood that the choice wasn't funny anymore. It was everything. And in that moment, knew his life had changed forever, could not stop thinking about what she had whispered. Every moment on the station now felt sharper, as if the air itself carried her words. "Say yes." The command, soft and almost playful, had burrowed into him and refused to leave. He tried to continue his work in the maintenance bays, tightening bolts and repairing circuits, but every movement was distracted by the memory of her gaze, the shimmer of her skin, the subtle warmth of her hand against his. The humans on the station noticed a change in him. His friends joked about him being distracted, calling him love-struck, but felt it differently. It was not simple attraction. It was like gravity had shifted, and he was drawn toward her in a way that was both terrifying and exhilarating. He could not deny it, and yet he hesitated. She appeared at unexpected times. One day, while he was recalibrating the station's solar collectors, she floated gracefully into the hangar, moving with a confidence that humans could barely imitate. Her eyes found his, bright and teasing. "Why haven't you said yes yet?" she asked, her voice playful but with an edge of seriousness that made his stomach tighten. Swallowed, unsure what to say. I don't know, he admitted, feeling suddenly small. I mean, humans don't, I've never, he stopped, frustrated with himself. Words failed him, they always did around her. She drifted closer, her presence overwhelming yet comforting. Her fingers brushed his arm lightly, and the touch sent sparks across his nerves. Humans are strange, she said softly. You hide behind rules and words, but feelings don't need rules. Stared at her, heart pounding, trying to make sense of everything. He had always believed humans were ordinary, limited, fragile, yet here he was, experiencing something he could not name with someone so alien she seemed born from the stars themselves. He wanted to laugh, to protest, to run away from the intensity, but the truth was inescapable. He was drawn to her, helplessly, completely. Later that night, he found himself wandering the observation deck again, staring out at the endless nebulae. Her words echoed in his mind, louder than the hum of the station. Say yes. He wondered what it meant for him, for them, for something so impossible. Could a human ever truly belong to an alien? Could a human love across the vastness of difference? She appeared silently, as if she had been there all along, and leaned against the railing beside him. For a moment, neither spoke. The soft glow of the nebulae reflected in her eyes, and felt the weight of unspoken possibilities pressing down on him. I know this is strange for you, she said finally, voice gentle, almost tender. I know it's confusing, but I didn't give you a joke, I gave you a choice. His chest tightened. A choice. That simple word carried so much more than he could explain. He had always thought of choices as small, manageable things. Now a choice felt like a universe. It was the kind of choice that could tilt a life, shift a destiny, and rewrite the stars themselves. Everything about this is overwhelming, he admitted. I don't even know where to start. She smiled, a slow, knowing curve of her lips. Start with the truth, she whispered. Start with what you feel when you look at me. Start with honesty. Looked at her, and for the first time he did not see an alien. He did not see differences or strangeness. He saw someone who had awakened something inside him, a warmth, a longing, a courage he did not know he possessed. He realized that fear had no place here. Only truth mattered. Yet, despite understanding, he hesitated. The words, I say yes, hovered on the edge of his lips, trembling with uncertainty. He could not speak them yet, not until he understood fully what it meant to take such a leap, to cross boundaries of worlds and hearts. She reached for his hand, and this time he did not pull away. Her touch was steady, grounding, as if she sensed his turmoil. You don't have to know everything, she said softly. You only have to decide, the rest will follow. Stared down at their hands, intertwined, and realized that for the first time in his life he felt ready to face the unknown, not alone but with her. The nebulae swirled outside like rivers of color, and in that moment he understood something profound. Choices could be terrifying, confusing, and uncertain, but some choices, ones that touched the heart, were worth the risk. And so, for the first time, began to feel the pull of a destiny far greater than himself, a journey he could not yet name, but one that began with a simple, impossible whisper. Say yes, had never been good at taking risks. He liked machines, routines, and the predictable hum of the space station. But the alien girl, as she had finally told him her name, was a storm that refused to be tamed. She moved through life with a confidence he could barely comprehend, and with every glance, every whisper, she pulled him further from the safety of his ordinary existence. One evening, she appeared at the edge of the observation deck with a mischievous smile. Come with me, she said, floating just above the metal floor, her form glimmering in the soft glow of the nebula outside. There's something I want to show you. Hesitated. I'm not sure. You're sure enough to follow me here, aren't you? She teased. Her words were a challenge, light yet impossible to ignore. He knew better than to resist. He stepped forward, and she took his hand, the warmth of her touch igniting a strange, thrilling fire in his chest. She led him to the station's outer deck, a place had never ventured. The deck was exposed to zero gravity, with nothing but glass walls separating them from the infinite stars. Stomach flipped as he felt the first tug of weightlessness, and he realized immediately how little control he had here. Every movement was unpredictable, every breath heightened by the unknown. laughed, a sound that floated around him like music. "If you're going to follow me, you have to move with me," she said, twirling slowly. Her body left trails of light behind, traces of her alien energy sparkling against the void. "You have to trust me." Swallowed hard, heart pounding. He had never felt so exposed, so vulnerable, and yet so alive. He tried to mirror her movements, awkwardly at first, flailing slightly in zero gravity. She floated closer, adjusting his posture with a gentle touch. "Relax," she whispered. "Feel the motion, feel me." The stars stretched endlessly beyond them, but in that moment, the only thing that mattered was the tiny sphere of shared space between them. Felt his body respond in ways he hadn't anticipated, muscles tense and release, heartbeat syncing with hers, fear transforming into exhilaration. "You're doing better than you think," she said softly, brushing a stray strand of glowing hair from his face. Her eyes caught the starlight, reflecting it back in dazzling colors, and his breath caught. He realized that this wasn't just a game. This was a lesson, a dare to trust, to surrender control, to take a step into something unknown. He laughed nervously, a mix of terror and joy, as she spun him in a gentle arc, guiding him closer to the edge of the deck where the glass gave way to the void. "You trust me?" she asked, her voice soft but firm. I think so," he admitted, gripping her hands tightly. "Then let go," she whispered. Stomach lurched, but he obeyed, feeling weightless in more than one way. For a heartbeat, he hung in the void of zero gravity, suspended not just by physics, but by the bond they were forming. Hands held his, steady and strong, and for the first time he felt an unshakable certainty that he could trust her completely. When they finally floated back toward the deck floor, he realized how much he had changed in just a few minutes. The fear that had dominated him before had given way to exhilaration. The nervousness, the hesitation, had melted under the glow of her presence. She smiled at him, radiant and triumphant. "You're learning," she said softly. "You can take risks, you can follow your heart, even when it terrifies you." He looked at her, breathing hard, eyes wide with awe. The simple joke he had made days ago, the whispered command to say yes, now seemed both impossibly close and infinitely distant. She had challenged him not just to follow her in zero gravity, but to follow the strange, thrilling path of his own feelings. Realized that he was no longer just a human mechanic on a space station. He was a human capable of choosing the impossible, capable of stepping into a world that all reason, all logic, all expectation. And in that moment, as he held her glowing hands and floated among the stars, he understood the first taste of what it meant to truly fall, into love, into trust, into something far bigger than himself. Smile lingered in his mind long after they returned to solid ground. For the first time, felt ready to take the next step, to move from hesitation into action, to finally understand the weight of the words she had whispered, thought he had begun to understand, the alien girl who had invaded his life and his thoughts. He had felt her pull, her daring challenges, the strange thrill of zero-gravity dances, but nothing could have prepared him for what happened next. It began with a sudden alarm, a harsh, metallic wail that tore through the quiet hum of the station. The lights flickered as the command system announced a minor hull breach near the observation wing. The human crew moved quickly, but panic brushed the edges of his mind. He had never faced a real emergency like this. Before he could think, appeared at his side. Her presence, as always, was calm and composed, glowing faintly in the emergency lights. "We need to help," she said simply, grabbing his arm. There was no question, no hesitation, just action. Felt a surge of protectiveness he had never known. "Stay behind me," he shouted, more to steady himself than to command her. But she didn't hesitate. She mirrored his movements, floating alongside him, her hands glowing as she guided tools and energy fields with precision. The breach was small, but the danger was real. A rush of air, the hiss of decompression, the smell of burnt circuitry, it all pressed against senses. Yet he was not alone. His presence steadied him, gave him clarity. She moved beside him, whispering instructions in her soft, musical language, and he followed, heart pounding, every instinct alert. They worked in harmony, a strange, beautiful synchronization of human determination and alien skill. When a loose panel threatened to float into the vacuum, reached out, her touch gentle but firm, and secured it. Marveled at her control, her poise, the way she seemed to exist both in this world and beyond it. When the final breach was sealed, the alarm silenced and the station systems hummed back to normal, sank against the nearest console, breathing hard. Floated close, her glow dimming to a soft, comforting light. "You did well," she murmured, her voice carrying warmth and pride. Shook his head, trying to clear the adrenaline from his mind. I couldn't have done it without you," he admitted. The truth was undeniable. He had never felt so alive, so connected, so needed. The challenge had forced him to act, to trust, to step beyond fear. And in doing so, he had seen a new depth to himself, one that existed only when she was near. His eyes softened, and she reached for his hand again. "Humans are stronger than you think," she whispered. "You don't always see it until you are tested." Looked into her eyes and realized that this test had been more than physical. It had been emotional, a probe into courage, trust, and the unspoken bond forming between them. He had followed her guidance, leaned on her strength, and in return he had discovered a courage he hadn't known existed. The night fell quietly on the station afterward, and returned to the observation deck, sitting together in silence, staring at the distant galaxies. The stars seemed calmer now, witnessing not just cosmic wonders but the quiet evolution of two hearts. Finally spoke, voice low and raw. "I've never felt anything like this before," he admitted. "Not fear, not excitement, it's all overwhelming." Smiled faintly, tilting her head. "Then it is real," she said simply. "Everything worth feeling is overwhelming, that is how you know it matters." He nodded slowly, the adrenaline fatting but leaving a new awareness in its place. She had challenged him, forced him to step into danger, and in the process had revealed the truth of his heart. He was not just drawn to her because of her beauty, her light, or her alien wonder. He was drawn to her because she made him more than he was, braver, more alive, more human than he had ever known. For the first time, understood the weight of her whisper, the command that had haunted him for days. Say yes. It was not just a choice of words. It was a choice of courage, of trust, of love. And after surviving the challenge together, he realized he could no longer deny the pull of the impossible. The stars outside stretched endlessly and felt a quiet certainty settle in his chest. He was ready to step into whatever came next. And for the first time, he no longer feared it. The station was quiet that night, the hum of machinery a gentle lull beneath the endless swirl of stars outside the observation deck. Sat near the glass, hands folded loosely in his lap, his mind a storm of thoughts and emotions. Floated beside him, her glow soft and comforting, yet his heart pounded as if it had wings. The words had been on the tip of his tongue for days now, the simple phrase that could change everything. But fear, hesitation, and disbelief had kept him silent. "I can feel it," said softly, her voice carrying across the deck. "The way you hesitate, the way your heart beats faster when you look at me, you know what I want you to say." Swallowed hard? He did. He knew exactly what she wanted, and yet the enormity of it pressed down on him like the weight of a planet. Saying those words would mean stepping into the unknown, leaving the familiar behind, and embracing something so extraordinary that it every rule he had ever known. He began, but his voice faltered. He looked down at his hands, then back at her, and his chest tightened. "I don't even know if I'm ready," he admitted, the truth spilling out in a rush. "I've never felt anything like this. I've never faced anything like this." His gaze softened. She reached out, resting a glowing hand over his. The warmth spread through him, steadying his racing heart. "You don't have to understand everything. You only have to be honest about what you feel. That is enough." He took a deep breath, letting the stars outside anchor him, letting her presence remind him that he was not alone. Memories of their shared moments flooded his mind. The dance in zero gravity, the emergency on the observation wing, the way she had guided him without a hint of judgment. Every touch, every look, every whispered word had built a bridge between their worlds, and now he stood at the edge of it, terrified yet drawn forward by a force stronger than fear. I think I know," he whispered finally, voice trembling but determined. "I think I know what I feel when I'm with you, and I want to say yes." Smile bloomed like sunlight over a dark ocean. "Then say it," she murmured, her eyes shimmering with hope and certainty. Say it because it is true, because it is yours." His chest swelled. The moment felt eternal, the quiet hum of the station fading until all he could hear was the rhythm of their hearts. He leaned forward slightly, taking her hands fully into his, and spoke with a conviction that surprised even him. "Yes," he said. "I say yes, I choose you, I choose this, I choose us." For a heartbeat, silence wrapped around them, the stars outside reflecting the wonder in their eyes. And then moved closer, her glow intensifying, her smile radiating warmth and joy. She placed her hand gently on his cheek, and for the first time felt the world narrow to just the two of them, two beings from different stars, yet perfectly matched in heart and soul. "You've said it," she whispered, voice soft and almost reverent, "and that makes everything real." Laughed softly, a mixture of relief, disbelief, and happiness, feeling the tension of days finally dissolve. "I can't believe I waited so long," he admitted, shaking his head with a grin. "It should have been obvious all along." Laughter followed, melodic and bright, filling the quiet deck with life. "Sometimes the heart needs time to see what the mind already knows," she said. "You've been brave, braver than you realize." He looked at her, feeling an overwhelming mix of gratitude and love. The impossible had become reality, and he had stepped into it willingly, fully aware of the distance, the differences, and the unknown future. In that moment, none of it mattered. All that mattered was the truth they had shared, the promise in their hands, and the silent knowledge that they were no longer alone. Exhaled slowly, letting the words settle, letting the warmth of her hand anchor him. "I'm ready," he said softly. "Ready for whatever comes next, as long as it's with you." Leaned close, and for the first time their foreheads touched, a quiet connection stronger than gravity, stronger than fear, stronger than the vastness of space itself. The stars outside shimmered like witnesses, but in that moment knew one truth above all. He had found something extraordinary, something timeless, something worth every risk, and he would never let it go. Days turned into weeks, and the space station seemed quieter now, though knew it was only an illusion. The real change had happened inside him. Saying yes had been the first step, but living that truth with was a journey unlike anything he had ever imagined. Every day with her felt like discovering a new star, a new pattern in the endless sky that stretched beyond the station's glass walls. Had a way of drawing him into her world without force or demand. She would show him her melodies, notes that weren't sounds as humans understood them, but vibrations that resonated directly with the soul. Had laughed at first, unable to hear the music in a way his ears could understand, but gradually he began to feel it. The pulse, the rhythm, the emotion behind every hum of her alien song. He discovered that emotions could travel without words, that connection could exist even when language failed. He shared pieces of himself, too. Human music, humor, stories of Earth that made her laugh with delight or tilt her head in curiosity. Every conversation, every shared moment, built a bridge between worlds that no distance could sever. Marveled at how easy it felt, how natural it was to speak to her without pretense, without fear. She listened to him as though every word mattered, as though his existence was not just seen but cherished. One evening they found themselves on the observation deck again, stars painting the dark canvas beyond the glass. His form glowed faintly, reflecting in his eyes as he looked at her. She placed her hand over his chest, directly above his heart. "Humans are strange," she said softly, almost with wonder. "You fear and doubt, yet you carry courage inside you that I could never teach, and still you let yourself feel fully." His breath caught. He had never thought of himself that way, not as someone capable of bravery or love or devotion. Yet with her, he realized that every moment of fear had led him here to this quiet intimacy, to this bond that was stronger than distance, stronger than difference. "You make it easy to feel," he admitted, "and terrifying at the same time." She laughed, a gentle, melodic sound that seemed to wrap around him like a warm blanket. "That is life," she said. "Love, trust, courage, they are never without risk, but they are worth it, and you are worth it." Felt a surge of emotion, stronger than anything he had experienced. He had always believed humans were fragile, limited creatures, easily broken by fear or doubt. But in this moment, he understood that love made them fearless. It was not strength of body or mind, but strength of heart that defined him, that allowed him to reach beyond his ordinary life and touch something extraordinary. They sat together, hands entwined, watching distant planets drift by, sharing silences that spoke more than words ever could. Every brush of their fingers, every gentle look, every laugh and whispered thought deepened the bond between them. It was not just affection. It was a merging of trust, of understanding, of two beings choosing each other in a universe that offered infinite possibilities. Realized that he had begun to see himself through her eyes, a human capable of daring, capable of devotion, capable of loving across worlds. And in seeing himself, he saw the truth of her heart as well, that she had chosen him not out of obligation or whim, but because she saw in him the courage and warmth that matched her own. For the first time, understood that love was not only about words, declarations, or promises. It was about presence, about being seen and being accepted fully. It was about walking together in the darkness of space and finding light in each other. He leaned closer, resting his forehead against hers. The stars shimmered beyond them, but here, in this quiet moment, felt a warmth that no distance, no fear, no alien difference could diminish. This bond, they had built it together, fragile yet strong, ordinary yet extraordinary, human yet more than human. And as glowing hand rested over his, and he held hers in return, knew with certainty that whatever the future held, whatever dangers or wonders awaited, they would face it together. Because love, he realized, was the most human and the most universal force of all, woke to the soft hum of the station's morning cycle, sunlight filtering through the observation deck's glass, casting shimmering patterns across the metal floor. Was already awake, floating gracefully in the pale light, her glow soft and calming. For a moment he just watched her, heart swelling with a quiet joy he had never known before. She was breathtaking, not just in her alien beauty, but in the way she made him feel seen, understood, and alive. "Good morning," she whispered, voice like a gentle breeze. She drifted closer, her hand finding his, warm and steady in the cool air of the deck. Squeezed it, realizing that the simple touch still made his heart leap. There had been no fanfare, no dramatic gestures, yet in every moment they shared there was meaning deeper than words. He looked out at the stars beyond, thinking about how far he had come. From the joke he had made on that first evening, careless, nervous, teasing, to the whispered command that had shifted everything, he had walked a path he never could have imagined. Every challenge, every fear, every heartbeat of uncertainty had led him here. And now he knew with certainty that this bond, this connection, this life with her, was where he belonged. "I was thinking," he began slowly, "about everything we've been through, the dances, the dangers, the moments when I didn't know if I was brave enough." His thumb traced gentle patterns over her hand. "And I realized I don't want to face anything without you." His eyes glimmered, reflecting the pale rings of a distant planet beyond the deck. "You won't have to," she said softly. "We face it together, always." Smiled, a mixture of awe, love, and relief washing over him. He had lived much of his life in ordinary routines, fixing machines and avoiding risk, but now he understood that the extraordinary was real, tangible, and within his reach. And it was hers, and it was theirs. He leaned closer, brushing his forehead against hers, and whispered words he had long feared to speak, words that now felt natural and right. "I choose you. I will always choose you." Her glow brightened, pulsing in response to the depth of his words. She wrapped her arms around him and felt the warmth of her presence infuse him with strength. There was no hesitation, no doubt, only certainty. For the first time, he felt entirely at home, not in a place, but in a person, in a bond that planets, species, and reason. They stayed there for a long time, floating together in quiet harmony, the distant stars bearing silent witness to their commitment. Realized that love could be simple and infinite at the same time. It did not require perfect words or flawless actions. It only required truth and courage, and he had both now, shaped by her, shaped by their experiences, shaped by the impossible journey they had shared. "I never thought humans could this," whispered her voice, trembling slightly with emotion. "But you've shown me everything. You've shown me courage, loyalty, and love I never expected." Held her closer, feeling the steady beat of her heart resonate with his own. "You've changed me," he admitted. "Not just because of who you are, but because of what we are together. I didn't know humans could feel so much until now." His laughter, soft and musical, filled the quiet space around them. "Then let us feel it together," she said, brushing a glowing strand of hair from his face. "Always." Kissed her forehead, a silent vow, a promise of endless days, challenges, and joys shared. Beyond the glass, the universe stretched vast and infinite, yet inside the small observation deck, he felt the greatest certainty he had ever known. Love could bridge worlds. Love could defy fear. Love could make two beings from different stars one. And as they floated together, hands entwined, hearts synchronized, knew that their story was just beginning. Whatever lay ahead, storms, unknown galaxies, or quiet moments like this, he would face it with her. He had said yes once, and now, with every breath, every heartbeat, every step of the endless journey before them, he would continue to say yes. Because love, he realized, was the most human and the most universal force of all. And he would never let it go.